CECE acknowledges and pays respect to the past, present, future traditional custodians and the elders of the country, and the continuation of cultural, spiritual, and educational practices of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And I would like to make a brief introduction about AIIM Choices, which is our main host today. 下面呢，我想简短的跟大家介绍一下我们今天的主讲嘉宾们是来自 AIIM Choices 公司的 Susan， 还有Michelle。还有是我们的其他的成员还有 Lian 那我就给大家简单的介绍一下AIIM Choices is regarded as a leader in the NDIS community, specializing in NDIS assess applications, plan management, and plan reviews. AIIM Choices is an independent NDIS plan management specialist with the primary purpose of empowering people to develop their potential. AIIM Choices is able to do this through developing an organic and natural atmosphere where participants and their support network, including service providers, feel valued, acknowledged, and cared for. At AIIM Choices, we're about achieving individual innovation management choices. Simple, really. We are a dedicated, dynamic, diverse team passionate to empower individuals to achieve their optimum level of independence and potential. Based in Wodonga, we pride ourselves in bringing our country values of service and support across a national footprint. AIIM Choices missions is to the first choices supply of NDIS plan management services, provide personalized support nationally. 那我们今天的主讲嘉宾 AIIM Choices， 他们呢是我们 NDIS 的那个 Plan Management Review 那边的专家，然后今天我们很欢迎他们来给我们讲解一下我们幼教人士特别多的这个问题，我们听得挺多，但是我们可能问题很多。Thank you for AIIM Choices. Thank you for all the speakers taking your time to share all this information with us. Now I'm going to hand the microphone to host to you guys. And yeah, I'm going to mute.
Hello, everyone. So today we're going to talk to you about a number of things and the ways that AIIM Choices can support you to support the families and the children that you're looking after. I'm going to start by talking to you about what the NDIS is and how it may be able to help some of your families. I'm getting a lot of feedback. I think there's people that are not muted. I'm just wondering perhaps whether we can check that we're muted because all I'm getting. Oh, that's better. Oh, thank you. Sue Chen, I think you're driving, aren't you?
Yes, I was trying to. I might just mute everyone, then that will be. Okay.
Yeah, that's better. Did you want to move on to the slide?
Yep.
So we've already been introduced. So my name is Michelle. We also have with us Liang and Suzanne. We also have another Suzanne with us who's going to be moderating the chat. So if you have any questions along the way, pop them into the chat and we will answer them at the end or along the way if we can. So tonight we're going to cover an introduction to the National Disability Insurance Scheme, which you guys would know as the NDIS. Getting started, so how might that journey start for a family? That might be with having concerns about a child's development. What would be the criteria to access the NDIS for children under 7 and for children over 7? Then the girls are going to present for you a case study, talk to you about the benefits for early childhood professionals, and then we'll wrap up with a Q&A session. So what is the NDIS? The NDIS is the National Disability Insurance Scheme. It's a scheme that the Australian government funds, and its costs associated for people with disability. The scheme was legislated in 2013 and went into full operation in 2020. It's been described as the biggest change in Australia since Medicare. The scheme is administered by the National Disability Insurance Agency, which you would hear talked about as the NDIA. And then it's overseen by the NDIS and the Quality and Safeguards Commission. The scheme entitles people with a permanent, significant disability to access reasonable supports to support them to live their best lives. The scheme is entirely funded, so there's no cost to be part of the scheme. The word insurance just refers to the scheme's proactive use of insurance principles. So insurance principle, which means to ensure that people with a disability are able to live their best life. So the N is for national, D is for disability, I is for insurance, and S is for the scheme. So that's what NDIS is. Thanks, Sue Chen. So what might be concerns about a child's development? So these might be things where a child doesn't play and move around the room like the other children. They might not be able to care for themselves. They might not be able to do up buttons. They might not be able to put on a coat. They don't socialise with other children well. They aren't able to communicate their needs. When you look at them compared with children of the same age, they are obviously behind them. So a developmental delay that would be consistent with, or there's global developmental delay. So global developmental delay is a delay across multiple domains, and developmental delay is a delay in 1 or 2 domains. So what's the criteria for eligibility with the NDIS? So in the under 7s, which Liang will talk about more in a moment, you don't need a diagnosed disability, but you do need to have significant concerns around a developmental delay or global developmental delay. What is a disability? So a disability, we need to remember, is different to a medical condition. A disability would be, in your space, a lot of the time maybe autism spectrum disorder or maybe an intellectual disability. And developmental delays, as we talked about before, which might be a delay in language, in first language and second language. It might be a socially delayed. They might be physically disabled as well. So I think that Liang's going to talk about what you do if you have a problem with a child under the age of 7.
Thank you, Michelle. My name is Liang. I'm a plan manager working for AIIM Choices. So Michelle just talked about eligibility for NDIS. Let's move on to helping children under 7 years old. What if parents have concerns about their children's development? So when parents come to us and discuss their concerns about their children's development, AIIM Choices support parents with their NDIS application. I will explain how it works and what can we do in the next following pages. So next page, please. In this slide, I will focus on Access Early Childhood Early Intervention, ECEI. So for parents who would like to apply for NDIS ECEI on behalf of their children, the first step is to contact health professionals, including GP, pediatrician, and get supporting evidence from them. There is a misconception that a child can get his or her NDIS plan just by talking to the ECEI childhood partner. That's not right. Although for children under 7, it is not necessary to have a diagnosed disability, but a supporting evidence from health professionals is still required. So next step is to contact early childhood partner. For audience who are not familiar with NDIS terminology, early childhood partners are organizations work with NDIS to deal with children on their behalf to help children from 0 to 6. NDIS have different early childhood partners in different areas. For example, there is an organization called Cerebral Palsy. They are one of ECEI's partners in Sydney. When parents submit documents and the application form to them, NDIS will review those documents and make the decision whether the child is eligible or not. There might have 2 meetings. The first one called Gateway, as Michelle mentioned before. So the purpose of this meeting is to gather information. If the child is eligible, NDIS will have plan meeting with them. So the ECEI childhood partner will work with the family to set up goals for the child and plan next steps. Next, I will discuss after 7 years old. So what will happen after 7? After 7 years, to remain on the NDIS, a child must have a permanent diagnosed disability, a disability that may be intellectual, cognitive, neurological, etc. So at AIIM Choices, as plan managers, we have an advanced system called CareView. It will remind us when a child is turning 7. So our plan managers will contact the parents to discuss the future plan, whether they are going to stay on the NDIS, what kind of documentation they need to provide, which allied health professionals they should go. We will discuss those questions with parents to assist with their NDIS journey. And next, I will illustrate how it works through a case study. Hans' story. It is a real case, but I changed their names to provide privacy. So in 2021, Lily, the mom, contacted us for her 5-year-old son, Hans. Hans' parents were concerned when Hans was 18 months that he had not developed the language, had poor eye contact, and Hans was sent back to China for early childhood intervention. Since Hans returned, his problem continued, so Lily was really worried about Hans. Lily contacted us for NDIS access application, and she was unsure whether Hans was eligible or not. We discussed the concerns with the parents. We linked them to the health professionals to gather evidence. We also filled out the application form on behalf of the parents. The reason we did it because Han's parents come from China and they don't speak English much, but the application form needs to be completed in English. We also joined the plan meetings. After that, Han received his NDIS plan, which is in the next page. We, of course, as a plan manager, we pay Han's bills through his NDIS funding. We also link Hans to the services he needed, like occupational therapist, speech pathologist, and we also point the parents in the right direction through Hans NDIS journey. Now Lily feel more comfortable and confident because she knows that her son is in capable hands. That's all my part. Next, my colleague Susan will take over and discuss the benefits. Thank you. Sorry, Susan, you mute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Leah. Since we, if we have children with an NDIS funding in our settings, there has a lot of beneficial for early childhood professionals we can receive or we can request. The primary things is we can get a better understanding for the child's need and also provide the inclusive needs for them. For example, I believe if we can get the parents' permission, we can talk with the therapist about the routine and special equipment and also the adoption about the child if it's helpful for us to know, and we also can get some writing information about the child and the family's needs and their goals. And for some of the children, like the one in my settings, they have a medical requirements because he need to wear the hearing aids. So we always get all these updated information about how we can provide inclusive support for that child, because that child will be reluctant to having that hearing aids. So what we normally do is we can set up the program, like we can have like a hearing aid day for that specific child, and everyone in the room can can potentially wear something similar to hearing aid and make that child feel more comfortable and more inclusive in the setting. And also, we can effectively communication with the parents and caregivers to identify the child's strengths and also their developing area. For example, we can build a strong and trusted relationship with the families. Then they feel more acceptable and also feel they participate in the child's goals. Because if the parents as a primary consultant for the early childhood settings, then they feel like they've been inclusive, and then we can ask the parents about their goals and expectations for their child, and we can talk with them how we can work together with them to make all these goals happen. And we can ask the parents what their preference to have a two-way communication. For example, some of the parents may prefer to have a written communication such as email or communication book or story park in regarding about their children's specific goal. Others, because they might be busy with work, so they might prefer to have oral communication, so such as arrange the the parental meeting or phone contact. And there are also something like and there are also some of the parents, they might prefer to only have one or key educator to communicate with them about their child's goals or needs, rather than talking with everyone in the team. So these are the things actually we should be aware of. And we also can receive some of the extra support in our settings or in our services. For example, in my room, because we have 3 children with NDIS funding, so normally we have each person. That means we are 1:11 ratio, but even we have 13 children today, we still have the 3rd staff in our room to support these children with NDIS funding. Apart from that, we also can receive the support and feedback from the external professionals. These are including OT, special, and also speech pathologists or psychologists. In NDIS term, we call that connected with key work model. So I recently actually received a phone call from one of the speech therapy from one of the child who is having hearing issue and also have a cognitive development in our room. Actually, that OT was suggest that we might can use like a gestural or visual card model for that child, because that help him to use both of the strategies in the both settings. Apart from that, we also can receive some internal training program. And for example, in the organization I'm working for, they actually have something called supporting children's behavior training, and also we have internal speech training, which can help that children to improve their specific part. We also have environmental ranking scale support. They also benefit for the child with their to help them to understand and to help us to understand our environment settings, which meet the child's inclusive needs. And apart from that, because my colleague already talked about how we can connect with the EC and ECEI partner to get the support for the children. Once the child may be eligible for NDIS support, then highly chance we can also receive these government fundings. These including the Kinder Inclusive Support Program, KISS, and also the preschool field officer program. I think and some of you may be already familiar with that because it always happened in the funded 3-year kinders. And we also, but I know there are some of our audience maybe from New South Wales. We also have a preschool disabled support program in New South Wales preschool. And apart from that, we also can receive the government fundings, which including the school readiness funding in Victoria funded Kinder, and also we can receive the Star Strong funding in New South Wales community preschools. So just because AIIM Choices, we provide 3 main services, including NDIS plan managers and NDIS access application, and also NDIS plan review. So it's a kind of a wraparound support. We also have staff who can speak multilingual. And so we always provide the free consultation for everyone who, if you have any children in your settings or surround you might eligible for NDIS application, just feel free to contact with us, and we can always help through that. We also have our social medias, including our Facebook, Instagram, and today's recording we are going to upload in our YouTube channel, so feel free to contact with us. So that's the end of the presentation. So it's time for the Q&A. So if any questions regarding about an NDIS application eligibility, feel free to put on the chat or just we will put on the screen and everyone can. Sorry, I didn't realize there has more people in the waiting room. So, Michelle, can answer some of the questions if it's.
I'm just reading the one that's just come through. Suzanne, thank you. Can you please give me some advice on transitioning to allied health, working in the NDIS space, background in early childhood teaching and counselling? I've been thinking if I should pursue OT or physio. Can you please share which occupation is more in demand? OT. That's a simple answer. OT is highly in demand in the NDIS space. The waiting lists for OTs all over the country are very long. So if anybody was thinking about a career change, OT would be amazing. It's a university degree, so you would need to apply. Sorry, the question is how do we get OT certificates? So it is a university degree. Yep, so you would need to apply through the channels. You may or may not get some RPL, so some recognition for prior learning, but the main universities would all offer OT, so you could apply. I know even with a nursing degree to do OT, it's still 3 years. So assessments for children. So can you also share the struggles to have the assessment training done online during COVID? So for families that have been only be able to access via telehealth, is that the question? So during COVID, there was no face-to-face provision of supports or very little provision of supports face-to-face. So people were accessing supports via telehealth. Some children it works okay for, a lot of children it does not. There are a number of providers that are still trying to clear their backlogs by working through telehealth. It really depends on each child's individual circumstances and whether they can interact via this type of medium. You will get faster support or faster appointments, I should say, to supports via telehealth at this point in time. There's a number of providers all over the country that will provide supports in other states via telehealth rather than face-to-face. Sorry, does that answer the question? That would be a question for Liang. How often do we get in touch with parents in the plan management space?
So as the plan manager, different plan manager have different policies. For AIIM Choices, we have 1 month contact, 3 months contact, 6 months contact, and 9 months contact. So we contact participants' parents all the time. We monitor their plan and send them funding status each month.
So for the NDIS, you need to be a permanent resident of Australia or have a special classification visa. So if there's ever any doubt, unless, of course, you're from New Zealand, and then there's a reciprocal arrangement between Australia and New Zealand. So if you've got any questions or families are not sure about the eligibility, please have them reach out to us because we can have a look at their visas or their status and see if we can help them out. ECI, as in an early childhood intervention staff member with a planning partner, is that the question? Yes, so they are depending when you work for a planning partner, you are the partner with the NDIS. So in the early childhood space, it's a little different to the local area coordination, which is the 7 and over. So in the early childhood space, they do the gateway meetings with Leanne mentioned, which is like a triage process. So they have a discussion with families on the phone, work out if they may be eligible for funded supports. If they're eligible for funded supports, they would then refer them to the NDIS for an access application. They would usually do that verbally while they're on the phone, and then they would do the planning meeting. So they would help the family set their goals, write the plan with the request for funded supports, send it to the funding agency, and then when it comes back, work with the families to implement it. If the child is not eligible for funded supports, the early childhood partners have multiple programs that they themselves run as well. So they quite often have speeches, they have teachers, they run different types of support groups, and they would also link families with community and mainstream supports as well. So that's the day in the life of an early childhood intervention coordinator. How can we support the child while the parents don't want their child to get diagnosed, but the child definitely needs additional help? How can we talk to them? That's a very difficult conversation. This is something that Suzanne was talking about before.
I think I can answer that question briefly, because from my understanding, if the way we are trying to approach them, if we can't really get them to on the same page with us, or they're not really supportive, then what we can try is we can use other ways like preschool field officer program, because that one, if the child, because we do facing some of the parents, they feel why their child will be different with other child, and we just said rather than set up that child and trying to refer them to be diagnosed, we can have the whole group being arranged with preschool field officer program. So then that child doesn't really feel whether they are different with other child, or otherwise we can, because for the 3-year or 4-year funded kindergarten, we always have certain fundings can assess. So what we normally do is we will gather all observations or other other documents, and we can say that's what we found for that child might need to have a special needs. So we just tell all the facts to the case officer, then the highly chance also can grant the funding or grant the extra support for us. So do you think that's answer your question?
So the next question is, do ECI need to visit the child face-to-face for the assessment? So the ECI is not making an assessment of the child. The ECI is using the evidence that's been provided to them. Liang talked a little bit about that. So when you're looking at accessing the NDIS, you need to provide them, even if it is a developmental delay, global developmental delay, something in writing that says that that child has been diagnosed with a developmental delay. That can be by the GP, by a paediatrician, by the maternal and child health nurse. They need to be provided with that. If there's other evidence of other disabilities, cognitive assessments, different assessments that have been done, they get provided when you speak to the ECI. If they haven't been provided, they would ask you to provide them. So they're not actually doing the assessment. All they're doing is looking at the evidence going, yes, this one will be eligible for funded support, so we'll put them forward to the NDIA who make the final decision, or no, with this criteria and what they've got here in writing, they won't meet that, so we will support them in another way. Does that answer that question? No worries. I would just like to say on that, with evidence, if you have any concerns or you wonder if a child might be eligible, AIIM Choices do look at that and provide advice around that as well. How could you balance the family's needs, getting some stuff funded while the NDIS is in principle does not approve and they retain them as your clients? So for us or for you guys? So for us, we work with families around what they may be eligible for. If they're not eligible for NDIS, we would provide them with links to other supports. What's the challenge for the ECI role? So the ECI role is challenging because working inside a planning partner, you are tied with the red tape of the NDIS. So you can only provide advice and supports around what is the insurance scheme that you're working within. So that can be quite challenging for people. It can be challenging for people working inside an ECI role that may want to do more to support families, but that's not within their scope of practice. Does that answer that one about the challenge around the ECI? Yeah, great. Thank you. No worries. Any other questions? If the child didn't get diagnosed, the director asked us to record daily child behaviour to parents. This record will help them with a Yes, that does make sense. Yes. So if the child doesn't already have a diagnosis or you're looking for evidence to support that, absolutely. And Suzanne, my colleague, and I, we're quite often asking parents and carers and early childhood educators as well as teachers for letters of support around behaviours and what else might be. So all of your observations absolutely do help build the case. Yes, we do work in Adelaide.
I think for Danny's question, I can also get some comments because we're also having something in the from the kingdom. We normally have the one we called SRF. So the SRF is for the state project for support children with behaviors. So these are the one actually we can get them to fill the form for the challenging behavior manager form. But some of the parents, they might struggling to accept that. But most of them, they found actually rather than say go through to diagnosis, but challenging behavior is something they can acceptable. So I think you can go through that with your setting if they are available. And apart from that, we're also having some internal trainings regarding about how we can approach with the parents, talk about their challenging behavior. So maybe then check with your center director, say whether they can provide this additional training for you. Yes, I think you might need to get a consent form from the parents. So, but just double check with your center director or other managing team members. Say if you really need to get all these request how you can talk with the parents better to involve with your early childhood maybe if you are room leader or if you need to request the educational leader to join the group meeting with you, that will be good.
I have popped, if anybody's got access, inquiries, the address to directly contact the access team. Suzanne is going to pop in the phone number. There you go. See, look at that. Just like that, instantly there it appears. It's going to pop in the phone number for you guys as well. Any more questions? I think we might have reached the end of the questions there, guys.
Michelle, Susan, and Suzanne, and Leanne, we do have a little WeChat group on our end for our participants to have a little discussion. If they have any questions, I guess Susan can refer them back to you guys in the future. Does anyone else has anything else to share or any other questions?
There's just one popped in that says, if a child has NDIS funding but does not have a support worker with him in the care, is that normal? So if that's in the early childhood setting, that's absolutely normal. So the NDIS would not fund inside care settings. So the NDIS, the same at primary schools, they wouldn't fund in there. The support worker may help at home, but in the early childhood space, support workers are also not usually funded. Early childhood space, it's usually about therapy. It's usually about getting the child that early intervention support. So hopefully they won't need to stay on the scheme for life. So that might have been the last of the questions. Thank you.
Yep, like I said, if any of you guys have further questions, please feel free to have a discussion or add Susan in our WeChat group, or otherwise, please feel free to contact AIIM Choices. And if we have no further question, then I would like to thank AIIM Choices, Michelle, Susan, Leanne, thank you very much for your time sharing this wonderful information with us. Like I said, as a early childhood teacher, I always have all these questions about NDIS funding. We listen to these words every day, but we don't really know what it really means or the process or what we really can do for these children and family. So we really appreciate your time tonight for sharing this information.
Thank you, Maxie. Thank you for all the support today.
Thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you. And Suzanne did record our little talk tonight, and we will try our best to upload the video, the link within, hoping in the next few days, and share with everyone in the group, just in case some of our educators wanted to join tonight but sort of missed this wonderful chat. Thank you very much again.